Hey everyone, welcome to In Detail by GA Plus. I'm joined by Kernan, and every week we'll be looking back on the championship matches from the weekend gone by and looking forward to having you with us for the year ahead. You're involved with the Sligo backroom team a couple of days after the Mayo game. What's the assessment?
I suppose the initial disappointment that we had on Sunday evening, it's still there. We haven't met back up as a group, but I know we've sat down and we've reviewed it, and the feeling was going into the game that we thought we were in a good place. We finished the league very strong, and we sort of knew every opportunity we create that we probably would need to nail, and unfortunately we maybe just left a few too many scores out there to try and beat one of the big guns, to beat a Division 1 side, and that's the bit that probably will be frustrating. But to go away from home to score 217 and to push Mayo the way we did, whenever a few times it looked like it was running away from us, it's something that we would absolutely be pleased at in terms of as a management team. And it's just a matter of refocusing whenever we get back together next week, try and see if we can build on the end of the league on that performance and give the Talton Cup another huge rattle, because they've done really well this past few seasons in it. They got beat by Cavan and Croke Park in the semi-final, down again last year. And the reality is you're looking to build on that and not only get to a final, but try and come away with some silverware. So definitely plenty of positives to take out of it, but still it feels like an opportunity missed whenever you've seen some of the chances that we left behind us. But you didn't get to see it live because you were one of the lucky GA Plus crew who got to head to the Big Apple. So how did you enjoy the start of the Connacht campaign over there?
Yeah, it was a great weekend, Aaron. You would have loved it. Look, it's a massive weekend, as we were talking offline. It's a massitive weekend for the travelling county over. There was a huge support, in particular for Galway, I think, because 5 years ago with COVID, it didn't happen. And, a lot of people had booked to go and were certain to travel this time around when the opportunity came up. So, huge crowd over there. And it's a funny one, really, because let's say, the team that goes out there look to, to promote the game and to make it a financial rewarding weekend as well. So there's a lot of events going on. And let's say Friday night, there was a meet and greet and the players were there for a couple of, maybe for an hour or 90 minutes in one of the pubs in Manhattan. And like, you can imagine yourself, Aaron, the Friday night before a game out, mingling with supporters and people coming over. It's not a natural preparation or setup, and throw in the jet lag and throw in the AstroTurf pitch, those little things make it a very strange, match to compete in. So while it was a slow start from Galway and, got to halftime just 3 points up, a lot of the credit in that would actually go to New York. They played some very fine football. And eventually then Galway just, you got going. And, from the 50 minutes on probably the fitness and the cohesion. I think Mike Finnerty, who was on commentary with me, said like since championship last year, it was 16 competitive games versus one competitive game for when you compared New York and Galway, and like that's massive. Do you know what I was reminded of the last time I was there with Galway?
I know all about it.
Your dad was the coach that time, and we had a tricky game, but we got over it well. And then the ash cloud hit. If you remember the ash cloud from the volcano, I think it was up in Iceland. So we ended up, we got a couple of extra days in New York after a game because we couldn't fly. So now you don't need too many guesses as to figure out what happened. That was the case. But I tell you what, we had some journey home. We ended up we couldn't fly into Dublin. We had to fly to London, and then it was a bus to the ferry. It was a ferry across the Irish Sea. And it was a bus up. So we were broken men by the time we got home. It could have been maybe Thursday at that stage. So that was one I wasn't going to forget too quickly. And I'm sure it was the same for your dad.
Yeah, I would say, I suppose that's a good sign of where PJ and the Galway team are, how relaxed he is with going out there, and the fact that he bought into knowing there's a bigger picture here in terms of, the Galway folk who are over in America, and also those who spent good money to travel over. I think they're obviously a very mature group in themselves in terms of doing what you have to do, mingling with people, but then also knowing that there is a job at the weekend. And I suppose I don't know for myself, we played maybe 3 or 4 times in a All-Ireland club quarter-final, having to go over to Rayslip. And even Rayslip, I just found that a difficult one. You're flying to a game, which isn't the norm for us in Gaelic games. And then also just driving around a big city, looking at the different stadiums, the landmarks. There's so much to get distracted. But to be fair, you mentioned, I was just looking at the scores as they were coming in, and from 55 minutes on, it just looked like Galway's fitness really kicked in. The New York score started to dry up, and Galway pulled away nicely before they finish up. And PJ was very happy to come home unscathed.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a worry over John Maher with an injury, but I think the early indications are it's not as serious as it looked, because it did look bad. But and he will be a loss, But look, at the chapter is closed. They're home since yesterday morning, and they don't have long now to get ready for Roscommon in the Connacht semi-final in Sunday week. But look, let's move on, right? Aaron, you want to show us a little bit on kickouts after the weekend?
Yeah, I suppose this all comes back to just by chance I happened to bump into Jim Gavin a number of weeks ago. It was prior to the sort of the rule changes, the tweaks towards the end of the league, and he just quickly said, "Give me your feedback." And I just automatically said to him, "Do it at the 40-meter arc for kickouts. It's just not working. It's too hard to get the ball away." And he just sort of smirked at me and says, "I don't think you're looking hard enough. You're not imaginative enough." And now, whenever I look back on it, I think obviously the league wasn't going that great for Sligo, and you were trying to just get wins on the board. You're trying to secure possession a bit more. But I think hand on heart, whenever you look at how the league is played out, and particularly for ourselves, stuff that I experienced, it takes all the control out of management's hands in terms of there's nothing you can do whenever a game turns, and there's so much excitement comes with it. And to me, I actually see it as a positive, and maybe lucky that they didn't take full heed of the management teams who wanted to change. But I think if you just have a look at the Division 1 and Division 2, the graph for both of them in particular, and this is what makes them stand out. Now, obviously, they have the execution in terms of how long their keepers can go. But compared to your Division 3 and 4s, they're going long as they possibly can to midfield and slightly beyond, over double the length of what the teams in Division 3 and 4 are now. Whether that's down to execution, whether it's down to movement of players, or whether it's down to, just trying to see if you can pick a pocket of space and be more secure in it, or maybe it's a collective of the whole lot. But what I've seen in a few instances over the weekend in Castlebar, obviously with yourselves over in New York, and up in Donegal and Ballybuffet, the reward that teams are getting off going long and the speed that they can get the ball from one end of the field to the other to get a score, it's incredible. You see the speed that Colin Reef, he's picking up a ball and he's straight out, the ball's on the tee. But what Mayo were really good at doing was clearing the central channel in around the number 6 and breaking the wings where they were occupying the Sligo players. But also their 2 midfielders, you can see the very left-hand side of the red screen here, they got straight out to the middle of the field as quick as they could, and Reap goes long to them. In this instance, you're looking at a ball going over 9 Sligo players instantly. That means that's 9 players not facing their own goal, not ready to defend. But it's not a matter of them just get the ball out and let's see what happens. It's get the ball out. It's a plan. The runners are coming off the shoulder. The depth is in their forward line. The movements in their inside forward line. O'Shea could have went first off to David Neary, which was from the right-hand side.
Oh, he doesn't give it.
He doesn't. He drew in a few defenders. They maybe thought a goal was on because that's what they're looking. They're thinking danger. They're looking for goals. Neary ends up putting the ball over the bar. Same thing here again. They're clearing that central channel, but they're occupying Sligo players. They can see that there's space there, and they're wondering, is he going to give a wee dink to the number 6? But just look at Stephen Cohen coming on the arrow now. So he starts on the left-hand side of the screen. He runs the whole way across because he sees space along the stand side. And as the clip rolls on here, he then draws the attention of the Sligo player and bolts to the inside lane, knowing that his own teammate can see what's happening behind him. And then he ends up, he's making a break into acres of open room. And at that stage, then the second Sligo player doesn't have the time to get across. But again, this is the bit that impresses me most. It's playing through the lanes then. It's a foot pass. O'Donoghue sees danger. Luke run, conviction to take on that contact and then finish. It's absolutely superb score. But again, it's not going long. It's what's coming after that there. But not to be outdone, I suppose, by the Mayo counterparts. Same thing. DJ Lyons is a net for Sligo. Sees an acre of space to his left-hand side, and Alan Riley makes a super run. He spots the space, spots the danger, but it's what happens off this here. Takes the contact, offloads to Alan McLaughlin, and a superb score off his left foot. 10 seconds from the ball sat on the tee till it goes over the bar on the opposite side.
And I think I saw a reap up for that one on the other side, filling space as well. So it was a well executed kick, planned to get him into space.
The reason why reap comes up is because 5 Sligo players stay ahead of the ball in their own half. So they're stretching the field. They're isolating players one-on-one in space. All he can do in that instance is take a side and hope for the best. But the ball switched to the opposite side of the field. The runners are off the shoulder. And because Sligo had so many people ahead of the ball, Mayo can't scramble quick enough to get it stopped or to get a double up. So again, that might have been, well, that certainly wouldn't have happened last year. There's absolutely no chance it would have happened. If there was one player in the opposite half, that might have been it. But the fact that 5 people stay ahead of the ball, they all have to be marked, and you can manipulate and create space to have simple opportunities like that. And the fact you can get a score after 10 seconds, it shows, I suppose, it's a bit of bravery in going long, but it's a great setup and what you can create. This is something similar in terms of Sean Patton. Now, to be fair, Ray McHugh gets a wee bit of luck in terms of holding on to possession. But again, look what it is. The next pass is a foot pass. They're trying to speed it up. Murphy sees down the blind alley, has to return back to Thompson. But as we pause here, this is again what works. It's a foot pass from Thompson. So even though Derry have the 11 players back inside their own half, they're not set because of that quick foot pass inside, the quick foot pass and the switch. So even though they're back, look at what the Donegal players, they make that angle cut in. So they occupy and stall that drift defence for a split second. And then Mogan makes that late run, as he has done this past 18 months, to great effect. Even not the slickest of hand passes, but they don't have the time to get across, to get him stopped and make him recycle. So something like that there is just, that's Donegal at their absolute best, and something that's textbook that they work on the training ground. And you were there yourself. You seen this, you called it in your commentary. And for me, it's just another example of how the top teams can hit you 2 ways. So they've gone central in a spine. They've left acres of space on either side where Flaherty can chip the ball too. So every New York player is honest now. They have to mark somebody. They know they can't switch off. They're assuming it's going here. But as you called it in your commentary, Cian Darcy then starts from the end of the D, or his own D, and on the attacking side, and makes a break centrally, wins the ball. Now, superb fetch under a bit of pressure. But again, it's look what happens.
When you clear, Aaron, when you clear as many players as you do with a kick out like that, what's on their mind?
Goal.
It's a goal.
They're absolutely, and Donegal are no different. Mayo are no different in that game. The reason why you're going long is because you're trying to catch the opposition in the poorest defensive shape that they can find themselves in. And just like Derry quickly got those 11 players back, they're not set, they're not organised, and they don't have time to communicate. Galway end up, now to be fair, New York have to foul them because the goal's on, and they end up to get a tap over free kick. But in a bigger field, on a better playing surface, that's the type of thing that they'll really go to town on as the summer progresses.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see a lot of this summer is with the type of kickouts, because of the rules and not having as many bodies. The bodies are spread out now over the full pitch. Goals, the idea of the goal chance, it's not gone away. People will say, there's the percentages of kicking 2-pointers and their value that remains very high, but there still is something about hitting the back of the net. I think it does for the team, it does for the support, and we will see a lot of teams looking at just getting that ball and having the defending team chasing back, because when they're chasing back, they're not set up. Their positional sense is not there, and it was apparent in a couple of examples already. We'll probably look at it again when we move on to the Donegal and Derry game, but I'm hoping that it's the real positive from the game for me is that the I suppose I'm speaking as a forward as well, but it's very much, in favour of forward attacking play, and I think that's a great thing.
And to be fair to the goalkeepers, their skill set allows them that even if Reap or DJ Lanes or Flaherty, whoever it is running up, and that long one is cut out, they have the ability then to hit these wee chips to the corners, where then you have to make your opposition think. You have to draw them into the situations that you don't want them, or that they don't want to be in, and then be able to hit them on the counter. And it was only weekend one in terms of what we're going to see, but certainly I think our top teams in particular have led the way, and it's something that I think organically the game will evolve into an even better spectacle, because you'll drop less players back at times, because the reward that you can get from holding your shape, from stretching the field ahead of the play. And you said goals will be the number one in everybody's mind. Obviously, you were in the Big Apple, but you've been doing your homework since you returned back home, and you were taking a bit of time out to catch up on the Donegal game. Was there anything in particular? Obviously, they've been very impressive throughout the league. They've been impressive since we get to come back, but anything in particular that you found that stand out as a decent analysis piece for the rest of us?
Well, I suppose you could continue it on and focus on kickouts again, and because they played a huge role in this game. Donegal under Patton were very effective. Derry, I think they coughed up, a goal and maybe 7-8 scores. Donegal picked that off from Derry's own kickouts. So, that is, you're never gonna fare out too well when you're giving up that much possession and that many scores from your own kickouts. But leaving that aside, I suppose I was impressed by Donegal, and I was impressed by the things that we learned about them 10, 12 years ago, and it's that speed, it's that power, it's that counter-attacking ability, the pace that they go at. And they were the very same again on Sunday. This is early on in the match, and it's very Derry are happy enough maybe to give the kick out off to Donegal, but the ball is moving down the pitch. Derry will probably feel that they have the bodies back, but just a little change. There's always an option, and there's always a probing run to change the angles, and eventually the ball is going to make its way all the way over to the far side of the pitch. Derry can't be happy really with how they're set up here. There's far too much space there. We have Donegal have the wind into the score and goal, and eventually it's just a kick pass across the pitch, like you referenced earlier. I love this run. There's just, when he makes his mind up, he goes at pace, and that's Kieran Moore. He grabs the ball, he charges through 2 or 3 Derry men. There isn't a great gap there, but he makes the most of it, and he takes a very simple score inside the smaller D. So it's just that fully change of angle, the speed that he goes at. And this one here, we could have had maybe 15 or 20 arrows here, because Donegal have a lot of work done on their kickouts, and they were creating huge amounts of space. But we're just looking at, pulling forward, creating the pockets, and we're going to get an outlet kick out to Ryan McHugh here. He's very lucky, really, in the way it falls into his lap. But the idea is there, and the space has been made by the different runners. Another example here, what Donegal can do is, if they turn you over, boy, will they go for it, and we'll see the bodies here pouring forward in a second. So they get the ball out. It's looked to move it out of the crowd straight away. And if we just look for a second at Darragh Boyle on the 45 here, he's going to end up kicking a monster of a 2-pointer here in a few seconds' time. He had just kicked a monster of a 2-pointer in the play before this. But what have we got? Donegal, doing what they do, committing numbers forward on the counter-attack, the hard-running lines that they run, and they're just running faster than Derry. There's no reason why they should be able to, but they're doing it. And it gets to a point here, in fairness to Darragh Boyle, he's not occupying maybe the scoring zone, which, we're now still in the first half. We're now with the wind. We're now in the scoring zone. He gets back inside. He gets a little bump from, I think, Martin Bradley, but he's looking for the ball again. He's going to get back out to the scoring zone.
I think initially he's thinking goal. He's thinking goal there. It's not on, but he doesn't switch off. He thinks, right, what's the next best thing?
Exactly, yeah. And I thought he just had a fantastic game, but he just wanted the ball, like you said. And here he is, watch this for a kick, after a bit of a lung-bursting run, and just drives it over with serious conviction. So that was just, I think, a super example of what Donegal can do on the counter-attack. And I think it's going to be Darragh. Again, he was flying it at this stage. This is the goal that comes from here. So lucky to win the kick out there. But here we go. absolutely gone. Watch the run. There's Michael Murphy, smart. He just delays. He sits back. We have on this side, I think it's Conor O'Donnell. The pace and the power he's running at here, and I can imagine he's screaming for the ball to Darrow's right, which does enough just to kind of not allow the Derry defenders to commit wholly and to pick up O'Wheel. And O'Wheel was just, confidence was high, and he drills it home. But like there was. He had an option right. He had two options left, but he was backing himself because he was in the groove. And
you're spot on. And the big thing for me is, and as an inside forward, is Michael Murphy constantly drifting to the back post. You can't leave him then. So you're caught in two minds. Do I go to the runner? Do I mark Michael Murphy? You mark Michael Murphy. But if O'Donnell doesn't run at the pace with the aggression that he does, again, he doesn't occupy Bradley as the defender. He can then step off. So I don't think it's not groundbreaking news to say that there's no team who breaks with the aggression and speed that Donegal do. Like that, the kick that they get off at turnover or winning possession, and how they can punish you with the speed that they break at, it was relentless. And obviously they have strengthened their panel from what they had last year, but they've just built on what is so natural and what they're so good at, and it'll make them very, very hard to handle as this summer progresses, because they'll just keep getting better. Their default mode will just get better and better as the weeks progress.
Yeah, it's just, I love how they commit. Any team, when you can commit to a phase of play, and I think that the crowd and the home support of Donegal now know what to expect, and it ticks all the boxes for them. And that they by virtue of the fact that they won't convert them all, they get turned over and they will be exposed in on the other side to the counter attack themselves. But it'll, I think any game where we'll watch Donegal, we'll be in for a treat, for the rest of the summer.
Yeah, where like the last time whenever Jimmy got on board, he obviously defensively he made them solid, but you have to say he evolved his game fairly quickly in terms of the goals they got against Mayo in 2012, what they did against Dublin in 2014. But the rule changes have made things different this time around. But I think he's comfortable enough in his own skin that he's not that obsessed with his concession as much anymore. And of course, they dropped low, and probably a bit surprisingly in that game, they played quite low whenever they had the breeze. They were dropping inside their own 45-metre lane, where you would have thought they'd push out a bit more. But ultimately, it goes back to your point. That's their lifeblood. Draw you in to a situation where they can force the turnover, and then there's no team in the country has the pace and the running power that they have to hit you on the break. But I do think that every team, all the small individual tweaks in terms of changes, I think every team will continue to evolve and get better at it. And I think organically, so much will improve with each team, just the more games and the more weeks that we pass and training goes. And you would have to say, as a whole, collectively, there's been a huge amount of positive in terms of these new tweaks and amendments that there's been made to the game.
Yeah, 100%. And I know, look, at Donegal gave up a lot of chances to Derry, goal chances taken, penalties missed and whatnot. So, but we're just looking at maybe that offensive play, that counter-attacking speed and what they bring. And I know there's one or two more clips then coming from the second half. So we're seeing them build here in the second half. It's a poor kick out. But what we have here now is when they get to the D, they're actually going to end up inside the D because something that we linked in earlier is that Derry are just chasing back. They're not set up at all. So very easily, very quickly, Donegal get to inside the D, which into the little win, that means now they're in the scoring zone. And what we'll see next is a couple of just neat little hand passes, completely changing direction. And Derry are in 6s and 7s, and it lands in the hands of Patrick McBrearty. And, within that range, that's a guaranteed score. And he looked really sharp the last day. But, that was just real credit to Donegal and their commitment to their movement. Here, there's a massive shout out goes to, I think it was Hugh McFadden there who burst the gut to break that ball in. And if we can hold it there for a second, Oisín Gallen is bombing through. He has got support left and right. If he actually veers over to the right now, I think there could be a chance to get Mogan in for a second. But he carries it on at pace regardless. He has those options, and he's going to need them because he just doesn't get through. Maybe not that long on the pitch wanting to get his own score, but he'll pop it back out to Mogan. It's going to work its way across to Paddy, and it's a very simple score. And, when Donegal can work the ball forward like that and get that close, you're always going to have Murphy, you're always going to have McBurty on the loop. And in this clip, we probably, looking at it from Derry point of view, they have the bodies back, they're facing play, they'll be happy enough with how it's looking right now. Donegal don't panic, they're up at this stage in the game, but they're not going to slow it down too much. They'll bring a bit of pace. Again, they'll change it from side to side. Aaron, like you said earlier, they'll look to kick the ball instead of hand pass the ball. And what we'll begin to see here is the D is quite empty, and that spells trouble. So what we have inside in a few seconds' time, we'll see how deep Donegal are. But Michael Murphy, I think, there's a glint in his eye here because he's got space to cut back on Conor Glass, and he's going to get a pass here in a second. Oisin Gallen kind of is thinking two things. I can be off Michael Murphy's shoulder here, or I think he probably identifies the pace at which Michael Murphy is coming at. He's only got one thing on his mind. So Oisin Gallen backs back out of that D, and Murphy's going to score from there. And like I said, you have the 5 Donegal lads, you have 4 Derry guys inside, which created that space. And we've seen that time and time again from all the best teams in the last year or two. But that's going to be so important, and it's going to give goal chances again this year. The last one, right? I think it's the last one for me. Just long kick out works out in their favour, and Derry are probably spent at this stage, but driving forward, Donegal, and just that right option. And again, I'd love to be kicking that myself there at the end of those moves, because you'd be tacking on the scores, and no better man than Patrick McBurty to make those count.
Yeah, to be fair, what you've seen in Donegal there is the ability to mix the game up. We always see them as that running team, but you're right, it's that whenever they're switching from one wing to the other, it's through the foot, which speeds it up and doesn't allow the drift defence to get across. And then particularly what you're seeing in them final few scores, a lot of teams, those 3 or 4 hand passes in round the D, you would think that's overplaying it. But with Donegal, it's not. They're so slick. Everything is always played to their teammates' advantage, and they're so comfortable in those close confines. For teams to try and copy and mimic them, it's very hard because there's nobody as slick or as comfortable in doing what they do. And like the one we have shown where they ended up with 5 players inside, and Murphy gets that opportunity to come in. A few things is, number one, that's what Derry were really good at a couple of years ago. But I think the big difference, like Derry were really good at doing that whenever you could drop 15 men back.
Right.
These new rules, these new amendments. That's my point where, players week by week are getting used to this now, where it's only coming into their psyche where Murphy's going, I can't believe I now have the opportunity to take a man on in a 1-on-1. So they push the 4 boys inside the 21-metre lane. 4 Derry boys have to go into them, and that leaves pockets of space and 1-on-1s where you just come up, time your run, come off the shoulder, and just have that conviction. You need to take a wee bit of contact, but that's fine. But once you take that wee bit of contact,
you're expecting that.
100%, but you take the wee bit of contact, you step across the defender's path like any good forward does, and it opens up for you, and that's where they absolutely went to town. And a lot of the big players, like Aidan O'Shea, I've seen him in their own game, very comfortable at taking 2 or 3 players into him whenever he's in possession, knowing full well that the runners and the options will be coming off him, and it's players breaking into space that hasn't been there for possibly maybe 4 or 5 years, and they're certainly starting to make the most of it in terms of the amount of scores that's going on the board.
Yeah, and I think that'll be, we're only after week 1, and as we go through the weeks here, Aaron, we'll have to keep a balance of attack and defend, but certainly the scoring is going to go through the roof, I feel, with the good pitches, the better weather coming in, the teams just figuring this out, and all of a sudden players kind of realizing, okay, during the league, there's a little bit more chance here. Like if I can go around a man, there mightn't be the 2 or 3, there won't be the 2 or 3 more there, and that's something that Michael Murphy hasn't seen in a long time, for example, there, that he's just, there's a wall of men, and Aidan O'Shea's and Damien Comer's, when he gets back in for Galway, and every county has those players that they've been kind of boxed out and just, haven't been able to kind of really have a cut. But I'd expect that we're going to see that this year, and, that augurs well for the year ahead. Okay, thanks, Aaron. We'll leave it there. That's it for In Detail this week by GA+. Looking forward to this week's action, and I'll catch up to you then.